Yeah, first and foremost, give all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the son of Mashiach, who some call Yahweh, Yeshua, Yehoshua. We mostly know as Jesus Christ. Briefly doing a review on someone else doing a review on GMS and some of the elders of that particular group, Great Millstone. Starting out with the apostle Tahar, one of his videos, and then another one of the apostles from GMS does a video, and then some of the leadership throughout that organization navigate around that that Esther chapter 8 verse 17. They became Jews, where it says they became Jews. And so trying to figure out how can that be? How did they become Jews? And they're trying to explain this. But in explaining this, they end up poking more holes in their doctrine, not knowing this, not understanding this, and that's some of the things that I don't know if people are understanding that. Like, when you start changing certain things, or you start adding certain things to your doctrine, you start poking holes elsewhere. And with this here, man, this holes everywhere. They're putting holes everywhere.
You can't be a Moabite and become a Jew. You can't be an Ammonite and become a Jew. You can't be an Edomite and become a Jew. You can be Judaized. You can follow laws. Go back to Hyrcanus in the Josephus. He forced them to keep the laws. So then they started thinking that they were Jews. They didn't make them Jews.
No big deal. So, when you bring that stuff up, what he's mentioning there is the Hasmonean dynasty. All right, when you're reading the book of Maccabees, first Maccabees, second Maccabees, third Maccabees, fourth Maccabees, whatever Maccabees you're reading, they're detailing a lineage of Maccabees who ended up being in rulership after we revolted against the Greeks, and had a victory against them, made a treaty with the Romans. We just and they thought they were Jews, but they're not Jews. They just thought they were Jews. Listen, they ain't think nothing. They were forced into doing that. They were forced into it. It ain't something that they wanted to do. What does that look like? What would that look like? What did it look like with Esther 8:17, where they became Jews? What did that look like? What did it look like when, as the apostle mentioned, that John Hyrcanus, what did it look like first century, second century BC of Christ, where Edomites have been converted and are navigating within Israel, and vice versa. Israel also navigating within Edom, because we had conquered that land. But then the Romans came in and took certain parts, and with our foolishness and our internal fightings. With all that being said, we're saying, I want you to think about what you're saying, Apostle. You're bringing out that we conquered Edom while we made it, while we're under a treaty with Rome. How are you making Rome and Edom? Then you're gonna have to explain how you're making Rome and Edom the same people. If Edom is conquered by Jews and converted in the first century, how are you saying Romans are Edomites? How are you saying Greeks are Edomites? And this is what I'm saying. When you start bringing other stuff out, you got to look at where you're poking other holes at within your doctrine. Research it. Just don't take, what Brother Phineas said. Just don't take my word for it.
The newcomers, proselytos, a newcomer.
And this is one another in the leadership. I want to say apostle. A proselyte or a convert, a newcomer or a stranger, they have the newcomer doctrine where they're saying, oh, well, this is just a northern kingdom Israelite foreigner. But he an Israelite, though. He know he an Israelite. And then you just sat here and said, Apostle Tahar just said, well, an Ammonite can't become Israel, but an Israelite can become a foreigner. Man, y'all got to make that make sense. Y'all kind of just out here just saying stuff, trying to get away from you, trying to answer one question, but you end up mutilating 10 other questions. Man, y'all got to make that make sense. Man, y'all got to make that make sense.
I want to give all the praises and the honor to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Recha HaKwadash, and double honors to the other apostles and the bishops of Great Millstone. Shalom to the other elders, your brethren, your sisters, supporters of the truth, whoever you may be, and shalom to the elect. So real quick, before I jump to the main part of the video, this guy here, the Prince of Power, is his screen channel, right? I've seen a couple of videos. You know, he does a lot of controversial videos on One West. He even opened up, giving all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and then to the Son that some people call Yeshua and Jesus. I mean, come on, stop with the act. That all come from One West. He talks about One West, just like a lot of people talk about GMS, and they only use GMS for the clout. We know a couple of Israelite groups that do that because they can't see it. But meanwhile, people are still going to wake up. But anyway, you know, I just wanted to bring it out. This same guy goes into the Blue Letter, goes look up things, right? But he doesn't have it, right? He just doesn't have it. So anyway, going to a couple of things he said before I get into the main part of Esther. That's the one. I want to go into the older Bibles. You'll be surprised what that says, right? He says we teach that the Romans were Edomites, okay? And then something like he said we teach that the Romans were Edomites, but how could they be Edomites if the Jews had the Edomites in slavery? I don't know if he's messed up on timelines or whatever the case is, which was a form we was under servitude under the Romans, and then you had the Greeks. I mean, the history proves itself, man. And then we're going to get to some major scriptures at the end of the lesson, Lord's will, that debunks all of it. So at the end of the day, let's say they converted over to Judaism. We're going to show you what the Bible says, right? Then he goes on to say, how can Jews become foreigners? Something like, he said, a Jew can't become a foreigner. A Jew can become a foreigner, but these people can't become heathens, or something like that. These guys did bring much confusion to the truth. But first, I'm going to go to this Bible. This is why I'm sharing my screen. This is the John Wycliffe Bible. Very hard to understand on some of it. Sometimes they make it easy to understand. But we're going to read a little bit of this and what it says. Now, first we must go back to Esther 8 and see what it says, 8 and 17. I believe that's what's being quoted. It says, and in every province and in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and is declared, came the Jews in joy of gladness, a feast of a good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them. We're going to show you this lazy, I forgot what they call that, but it's lazy translation. That's all that is. It's one word that changes everything. And some texts don't even say that. So we're going to go to the commentary. I'm sharing the screen for a reason, so you can see. It says, let me go down here, maybe Matthew. It says, and many of them became Jews. There is a lot of precepts that go to this, but I just want to get to the point. It says, oh, this is 8 and 1. We got to go to 8 and 17. 8 and 17 real quick. Bear with me. Okay, this is the Benson translation. You can read all of these. I'm just going to read to the point. And the fear of the Jews fell upon them, right? And the fear of Jews fell upon them, and many of them became Jews. It says, and they that thought formidable and those miserable that were against them, they plainly saw that Haman's fate, that if they offered an injury to the Jews, it was at their peril, which is destruction, and therefore for their own security they joined themselves to them. It is folly to think contending with God of Israel. And see right there, the God of Israel tells you that right there. And therefore its wisdom is think of submitting to him. So understand that when you take a nation down, they follow after your manners of footsteps. Even when the kingdom come, right? They can't be Jews, but they will follow after the manner of the Jews, right? It's that simple. So right here, this was a little hard to read, but normally it's not. But for some reason, this is. It says, Nor, Dawson, all peoples, right? Cities and all provinces. I'm trying to read it. Where there ever were the commandments of the king. It says, it's spelled different when I'm trying to translate it. Cayman and wonderful joy met the feast, and hoodie day so much. And it says mish, but that means much. It says, here it goes, that many of and other folk, when you go to folk, you do go to other nationality. That's why it says the other folk. And sect were joined to the religion and ceremony, right? Ceremonies of them, right? For the great dread of the name of the Jews had ascended all of them. So you see right here, this changes everything. It says many of the other folk and sect were joined to the religion and ceremonies of them for the great dread. So we're going to go to the other one. This is a little bit easier. You can read all of these. This is another one by the Great Bible of 1539. This says, in the lands of the city and the places whatsoever king's word and commandments reached, there was joy and mirth, prosperity, and good days among the Jews, insomuch that many of the people in the land became of the Jews' belief. Right? You can't just become a Jew. They became of the people of the Jews' belief. That changes everything. And their fear of the Jews came upon them. That's why they did it. They had to follow under the Jews' belief. When you look at the woman that hid out the spies, right? That woman that hid out the spies, I believe in Joshua. What did she do? Yeah, she became similar of the Jews, but she was not a Jew. And we're going to show you at the end of this lesson why it's impossible for them or any nation to become a Jew unless you are actually Jew or you're an Israelite. We're also going to show you that when the Lord called this people Sodom of Egypt, right? We're going to show you, well, let's get that real quick on what he said. He said that the people, how is it possible that an Israelite, so Israelites can be called foreigners, right? But you mean to tell me that Jews, other people can't be called Jews? He cut himself right there. Absolutely, they could be called this or they could be called that. But does it make them that? That's the key. That's the key. And I think that was Rahab. You also have this scenario with the Moabitess, Ruth, who was a surrogate mother, right? I believe for Boaz. And then what happened when she had that baby? Naomi took it and Naomi named it. Wait a minute. If she was of the Jewish custom and she believed and she was now converted to be a Jew, why would some other woman have to take her baby and rename the child right? And then carried as being the mothers for that child. She was purely capable of being a mother for that child. So why didn't that happen? There's too many holes in these Christian doctrines. And this guy's nothing more than a damn Christian, man. That's all he is. So we're going to go to the book of Acts. Acts 2. Let's go to Acts 2 and 10. I believe it's Acts 2 and 10. This is by the Barnes. I don't think I had the actual scripture up. Let's go to Acts 2 and 10. I'm going to try to make this quick. This may take a little while, though. Acts 2 and 10. It says, this is what it says. Phrygia and Egypt and the parts of later of Cyrene and the strangers of Rome, Jews and proselytes, right? So in some of the commentary, they'll say proselytes were heathens in the Old Testament, right? So here it says the Jews and the proselytes, right? So we're going to go into some context on that. And, well, let me read some commentary on that. Jews and proselytes. It says Jews and proselytes. The words may possibly be applicable to the whole preceding list, but they read more like more. Let me see if I'm in the right one. I don't think I'm in the right one. Right. This is the Barnes. These were also two provinces of Asia Minor, surrounding Galatia, Cappadocia, and Pisidia, Pamphylia, like if I'm misspelling it wrong, was on the Mediterranean and was bounded north of Pisidia. The language of all these places was doubtless the Greek more or less pure. In Egypt, right, this was the extensive country well known on the south of the Mediterranean, watered by the Nile, 600 miles from the north and south. Let me get to the point. The average spoken, right? Vast numbers of Jews dwelt in Egypt, so they were calling themselves Egyptians as well. But does that make them Egyptians? Right? A vast number of Jews dwelt in Egypt, and many from that country would be present at the great feast of Jerusalem. In this country, the first translation of the Old Testament was made, which is now called the Septuagint, which I believe Septuagint means 7. And the parts of Libya, general name in Africa, probably noted the religion which was near Egypt, but the Greeks gave the name to Africa, right? I'm not going to read all this. It says here, strangers in Rome. It says these literally means Romans dwelling for Tyrian, that is in Jerusalem. It may mean either that they were permanently fixed or only Tyrian in Jerusalem, right? They were doubtless Jews who had taken up their residence in Italy and had come to Jerusalem to attend the great feast. This is the same scripture we're reading in Acts 2 and 10. This is what the commentators and scholars are saying. I'm not making this up. So when it talked about the Jews and proselytes, right? And it says the language which they spoke was the Latin. Great number of Jews were at the time dwelling in Rome. Josephus says that they were 8 synagogues, that the Jews were often mentioned in the Roman writers. Now again, they're not always correct, but when you see Jews and proselytes, those proselytes were other Israelites, right? You had different sects of Israelites. We're going to prove that too, right? That you can be called of another nation, right? We're not saying that in Esther 8, when it said many of them became Jews. Yeah, they became followers of the Jewish tradition. Well, they might say Jewish, but of the so-called, let me say of the people of Judea, Israelites. Yeah, that doesn't mean they were Jews. And clearly that's why I read the other context when it says many of the people followed the tradition of the Jews, the religion of the Jews. That don't make them Jews if they follow the religion. Many of us follow the religion of Egypt, of the Greeks, of the Romans, right? We're going to get in that too. So we go here, the Acts 6:1, and in those days when the number of the disciples was multiplied, right, there arose a murmuring of the Grecians against the Hebrews. So now we go down here, and the murmuring of the Grecians, G1675, I'm sharing this screen for a reason. It says here, a Hellenist, one who imitates, watch the mouse, right, the pointer, one who imitates, right, one who imitates the manners and the customs of the worships of the Greeks and used the Greek tongue. Used in the New Testament, Jews born in foreign lands and speaking Greek. So we see this same thing, right? We did convert to, we was in these foreign lands speaking Greek, following Greek tradition, following Roman tradition, but did that make us actually Greeks and Romans, right? The same thing here with Esther, in the book of Esther. Yeah, they followed the tradition of the Israelites because of the fear, right? Why wouldn't they, right? They followed the traditions, followed the customs and the manner of the Israelites, but does that make them Israelites? Absolutely not. Just like it made them no more Israelites to be Jews, it makes no more Jews to be Greeks, right? We're not Greeks. We're not Romans. We call ourselves Americans now, right? But this is the trickery and psyops that these guys try to pull over on you. You know what I'm saying? Acts 21:38. This is what it says. Acts 21:38. Art not thou that Egyptian? Talking about Paul. So Paul was called an Egyptian. Is he an Egyptian? No. And this is lazy studies, right? These guys just take what they want to hear from the Christian mindset, and this is what they bring out. Does that make Paul an Egyptian? You read Romans 9. It's about a bloodline. He just opened up, said, give all praises, honor, glory to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. When you read Genesis 17, who got the blessing? Right? Who got the covenant? Let me say that. He said, my covenant I will establish with Isaac. When did that change? Now all of a sudden everybody else can lay hold to the covenant? When did that change? Malachi 3:6 says, I am the Lord, I change not. When did that change? We're also going to show you in Revelation 7. A lot of these scriptures cut all that, man. He said, art not thou that Egyptian which before those days made it to the uproar, and lead us out into the wilderness, for 1,000 men were murderers. Right? So we can go back here to Acts. Acts kind of clear a lot of this up too. Like Acts, 13? Acts 13. See if I can find that. Acts 13. Okay. I don't know why I jumped there. Acts 13 and 16. Then Paul stood up, beckoning with his hand in the air, and said, men of Israel, and ye that fear God, the God-fearers, give audience. The God of this people Israel chose our fathers, right, and exalted the people when they dwelt as strangers in the land of Egypt. So there's no doubt that our people was in different locations. He said, right, that we was amongst the Edomites amongst us. So basically what he's saying is that everybody can be wherever they go and whatever they want to be without nationality, right? This is what he's saying, that no matter who you are. So now if I go to China, I can just become Chinese. Not only can I call myself Chinese, but I can be Chinese, right? I could be Moab. I could be Ammon if I want. I can go down to Sudan, right? And I can lock in down there and put a lip plate in my mouth, right? And jump up and down half naked in a line with a bunch of black, purple Egyptians. And then I can say, hey, I'm an Egyptian just like you. Does that still make me an Egyptian? Absolutely not. It makes me an Israelite following the customs of the Egyptians, right? Just as though if a heathen come and convert, right, and want to follow after the children of Israel, guess what? They're still not the children of Israel. They're just followers of the children of Israel. And that's coming in the kingdom, right? You can say many of them have become Jews or Israelites, but they're not technically Israelites. They're just going to follow. That's why I read in the old Bible when it says they became of the religion of the Jews. That's the difference. And the Lord has no problem with that because we over them. How the hell are you supposed to be a leader if you don't have followers? Anyway, he said, chose our fathers, exalted the people when they dwelt as strangers in the land of Egypt, and with a high arm brought them out of it. Right? So we want to go to Acts 13 and 16. And I want to read some commentary on Acts 13 and 16. Let's see if I can find that. Let's go to Acts 13 and 16. We're going to read this short commentary real quick. Men of Israel, in the latter days, and ye that fear God. The latter phrase denotes as Acts 10 and 22. Those who thought, who through in the synagogue were of heathen origin, right? They didn't believe and had not become proselyte in full sense of the term, but known as the so-called proselyte at the gate, right? And you go to the precept, it talks about, and they say Cornelius the centurion, a just man. So this is why at precepts, a lot of people have a problem understanding that we were Hellenized and we were calling ourselves other things, as I read in Acts 6, where we were calling ourselves Grecians, right? Ye that fear God seems to best suit those who embrace the Jewish religion, right? And enter into covenant with the true God. Yet so also include any others whom are of filial reference. So when they see that, right, the commentaries, that's where they get it from. They see that, they automatically think it's talking about everybody else. I want to jump real quick to the when it says men and brethren, the stock of Abraham, right? Acts 13 and 26, right? This is what the Barn says. It says, children of the stock of Abraham, descendants of Abraham, you who regard Abraham as your ancestor. He means here to address particularly the native-born Jews, right? And the appellation is used because they valued themselves highly on account of their descent from Abraham, right? This is why Yahushua had that. He had issues with those Pharisees, and he said, "Before Abraham was, I am," and they chased him out, right? And then it says, because the promise of the Messiah had been specifically given to him. And it says, and whosoever proselytes, because you had Israelites that you really was not a believer if you didn't believe in the Messiah. He was trying to bring us back to let them know it's not just about the law, but to be brought back through faith in the Messiah, right? And faith, that was the key. And it says, and whosoever proselytes, it says here, see notes in Acts 13 and 16. So we go over here to Acts 13 and 16 in the NIV. This is what it says. Standing up, Paul mentioned with his hand and said, fellow Israelites, right, and you Gentiles who worship, listen to me, right? It goes on to say, Paul stood up and beckoned with his hand and said, men of Israel, and ye that fear God, give audience. So they made it seem like that it says fellow Israelites and you Gentiles, which is true because you had Gentiles that was Israelites. Let's go to First Corinthians, right? First Corinthians. We're going to go to the book of First Corinthians. We're going to go to the 12th chapter, right? And let's see what it says here. First Corinthians 12. I don't know why I went to 1. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 12 and 1. It says, now concerning spiritual gifts, brethren, I will not have you ignorant. Ye know that ye were Gentiles carried away into these dumb idols, even as ye were led. Right? It says, I will not have you ignorant. Ye know that ye were Gentiles carried away into these dumb idols. This is why in Acts 13 he was saying men and brethren, and ye that fear God, you know, and the Gentiles, right? You know, just like our people, they claim they fear the Lord, right? But they don't follow the Lord. So anyway, just to sum this up, I want to go to Isaiah 60:12. For the nation and kingdom that will not serve thee shall perish, right? We see this in Esther 8, that's being a great example. Yea, those nations shall be utterly wasted. So in order to serve us, they will have to become and follow what we say to do, period, right? This is also what the scripture says, Jeremiah 30:16. Therefore all they that devour thee shall be devoured, and all thine adversaries, every one of them shall go into captivity. We see this in Job 34:29, when he says, I will punish, you know, against you, what it say? Basically, who will give quietness? He'll judge you whether it be a nation or a man only, right? We see this in Isaiah 14:1. The Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined, meaning united with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob, right? And then it goes on to say, and it says, and the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids. You can't get around that. It's various other scriptures that we go into that you can't get around. Revelation 7:9. Revelation 7:9. After this I beheld, lo, a great multitude, which no man could number, of all nations, kindreds, peoples, and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hand. I'm not going to, that was a whole breakdown of Revelation 7:9, but I'm going to just get to the point. You know, we know the multitude going back to Genesis, when he said, I will number you for a multitude as the sand of the sea. And when you go to Hosea 1:8, 1:10, it says, yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured or numbered. In a place that was called, you were said, my people, you shall be called the children of the living God, right? Which is Paul was quoting in Romans 9:26, right? So when you go in this chapter, when it says every nation, a great multitude of every nation kindreds, this is G54:43. This is what it says. It says in the New Testament, all persons, this a tribe. In the New Testament, all persons, right, descending from one of the 12 sons of the patriarch of Jacob. So we see this even in the New Testament. It's even in the New Testament. So anyway, I hope this was edifying. I don't know how much more do we need. Do we need to go to the book of Obadiah and says 1:18 when he says the house of Joseph for flame and a house of Esau for stubble. So no matter what nation that they claim joined to us and they converted, doesn't matter. As I read in Job, was I quoted in Job 34:29, what did he say? I will punish you whether it be done against a nation. I got to get it because I don't want to keep misquoting it. Don't want to do lazy scholarship, right? So we're going to go to the book of Job, right, 34. 34. And let's see if we can get to 29. 34:29. Let's see what it says real quick. It says, when he giveth quietness, who then can make trouble? And when he holdeth his face, who then can behold him, whether it be done against a nation or a man only? That's so at the end of the day, no matter what they, even in these guys' eyes, no matter what they decided to do, or however it went down, at the end of the day, as I read in Isaiah 14, they have to serve the Israelites. And they all have to go in captivity. Every nation under the children of Israel. And the children of Israel will rule over their oppressors, as Isaiah 14 says. Anyway, hope this lesson was edifying. That's all I have on this show.